acknowledge that we are on the lands of the Darug people. This traditional land has been occupied by these people for millennia and some. We recognise that the land has never been ceded. And I'd just like to say a traditional Darug welcome, Warramai Miniga, which means welcome friend. So I'd just like to welcome you all here today at our meeting and acknowledging that we are on the stolen lands of the Darug people. Pay our respects to elders past and present. We recognise that the land has never been ceded and we continue the calls for First Nations injustice. Thank you. So our first speaker today is the candidate for Riverstone, Rob Vale. Thanks.
First of all, I'll second what Damien said about the Darug people, original inhabitants. I'm Rob Vale, Greens candidate for the Riverstone electorate, and my electorate extends from Vineyard in the north to Rouse Hill and Kellyville Ridge in the east, Acacia Gardens and Quakers Hill in the south, and Schofields and Riverstone in the west. And I have lived in Quakers Hill for the last 36 years. Our recent pothole petition, with more than 1,300 signatures, was presented to New South Wales Parliament in November. It allowed me to have hundreds of conversations with Riverstone electorate residents and to listen to their concerns. Some of my priorities for the state election include encouraging more and stronger climate action, advocating for public education from preschool through to TAFE and university, as I was a New South Wales teacher for 35 years before retiring. Also speaking out against overdevelopment in Riverstone, helping people with their housing, as well as pushing for better public transport and safer roads. According to Dr. Sebastian Fausch, who's an expert on microclimate from the University of Western Sydney, the predominantly dark grey roofs in Riverstone electorate add 6 degrees Celsius to the temperature in the houses. Similarly, heating occurs with dark roads and all the shade trees bulldozed and chainsawed. So we have the sweltering western suburbs. I believe we can do better. Developers lured Riverstone electorate residents with promises of larger houses for their growing families, but they also promised neighbourhood public schools, parks, community centres and nearby shops. Instead, the reality is overcrowded public schools with wall-to-wall demountables, which remind me of refugee camps. I believe our children deserve modern classrooms. Also, due to the wage cap and excess teacher workload, schools in Riverstone electorate are struggling to find enough teachers to educate our children. The developers and governments at all levels didn't communicate and plan, so parks, community centres and shops are scarce. In parts of Riverstone electorate, they built on flood-prone land, presumably to maximise profits. These hot houses of Riverstone electorate with little space for gardens or exercise for children or pets still cost around $1 million and require escalating power bills for their air conditioning. I believe we can do better with incentivising rooftop solar and planting shade trees. Like everywhere in Sydney, there is a desperate demand for much more affordable and social housing. Rents have risen in Riverstone by 10% just this year. I've started advocating for renters' rights using the Greens petition and supporting our Greens MPs' housing initiatives. I believe everyone deserves adequate housing. According to census data, residents in the Riverstone electorate have a high number of cars per household on average due to a lack of public transport in the area. I will push for public electric bus transportation, subsidising EVs, and funding the fixing of free roads, as well as building more cycleways. Other issues that I will campaign on before March the 25th include protecting the unique Riverston wetlands, replacing the frustrating Riverston level crossing, listening to the concerns of local First Nations people, speaking out against gambling, especially the harm from playing poker machines, stopping any waste incinerators, and supporting public teachers and nurses fighting for wage justice and better conditions. Of course, I am standing to encourage voters to support our energetic and talented upper house team of Kate Fairman, Dr. Amanda Coe, thank you for coming today, man, and Linda June Poe and Jim Casey. Lastly, I would welcome any assistance which members or supporters can offer, be it large, handing out how the votes on the day or in tree poll, or small, putting up a Greens core food in the front yard, or providing a much needed donation, and we have the QR codes there if you're able to afford that. I believe Riverston electorate can do much better with a strong vote for the Greens on March the 24th.
Thank you.
I wish to introduce my friend Damien Atkins, who's a persistent and committed Green, and he is our candidate for Winston Hills election. So, over to you, Damien.
Thanks, Rob, and thanks for your speech. Awesome. Hi everyone, I'm Damien and I'm the candidate for Winston Hills. In the words of Bernie Sanders, I'm once again asking for your support. Winston Hills starts from Glenwood and Layla Park in the west, runs all the way through to Westmead and Northmead and Wentworthville in the east. And Winston Hills, of course. I'm standing to be a candidate in the state election because I want to see a state where nurses and teachers are paid more for the work that they do. I want to see them work in an industry that values them, values the important work that they do, including having workable, manageable workloads, and paying conditions. I want to live in a state where renting doesn't mean living in substandard housing, living in unsafe accommodation. Just because people rent doesn't mean they should be having to rely on the health system because they live in mouldy houses, they live in cold houses, they live in hot houses. I also want to live in a state where strong action on climate change means that we don't keep seeing repeatedly increased severity in really awful flooding, heat waves, and every other natural disaster that we just keep seeing increased severity and consistency. The length of heat waves is increasing a day a year, according to modelling. And we really feel that in Western Sydney. We suffer the very worst aspects of urban heat island effect, being approximately 40 k's from the coast. The heat sits in our area and it swells. And like Rob was saying, the current planning and the way we develop where we live, hot roads, hot roofs, just exacerbates it. We need better action, better planning, better local planning. Renting has also become worse over the last 4 years. With increased rents and the cost of living, the renters in the seat of Winston Hills are just feeling the pressure, us included. So substandard conditions and minimum efficiencies in rental properties is a huge issue for the Greens can really tap into. A third of people rent according to the latest census, so 1 in 3 people rent. I want to see the Greens renters issues front and centre at the election, especially the work that Jenny Leong has been doing. I want to see that unfair evictions are cancelled. You can't just kick someone out simply to put the rate up and rent it out again. I want to cap rent increases to the CPI Our rent's going up next year by double the current CPI rate, personally. Double that rate, yeah. I also want to see renters have the ability to keep pets if they so choose. Why should you have to ask to keep a pet in your own home? Pets are a companion thing, and it should be everyone's right to have it if they so choose. And finally, part of renters' rights is allowing minor changes to the property that you live in, like keeping a picture of your kids up on the wall, putting in the garden bed without having to ask permission. You know, just making the home you live in yours, because it is yours. Even if you pay a weekly fee for it, it is your home. I want to see at least our 3 top upper house candidates elected. So Kate Fairman with her work in pokies, Amanda Conn, who's here today for her health portfolio knowledge, especially rural health, and Linda June for her continued and vigorous campaign around First Nations rights and justice. These issues are fundamental to the Blacktown area. Blacktown has some of the highest pokie losses and pokie machine numbers in the state, and probably the country too. Blacktown is equipped with 2 world-class hospitals, but again, the staff who populate them just can't keep up, and the conditions keep going down. So we have these beautiful facilities, and the help is not there for them to utilise it properly. And also, Blacktown has some of the highest urban First Nations populations in Australia. However, we continue to see First Nations injustice locally, including the shooting last year and the tragic death of Stanley Russell in Seven Hills. This is real and local. These issues affect us all, and we can't do it without you. So if you want to change the system, change our state for the better, and you want to see the Greens policies really push forward, then we just need your support by voting the Greens locally in Western Hills, Riverstone, Blacktown and Mount Druitt, and in the upper house. Thank you. I'd like to ask my friend and esteemed colleague, Len.
Thanks, Daniel. Speech. Hi everyone, I'm the friendly candidate for Blacktown in the electoral March 25. The area goes from Marion, Dean Park in the north, down to Arundel Park and Huntingwood in the south. Now, I normally stand in Seven Hills, but this time Damien is standing in Seven Hills, and I used to be in the electorate of Blacktown, but I'm not anymore, so I find that I can't vote for myself. So I hope Damien will put in a vote for me. Right, I've lived here 20 odd years. My wife is an ICU nurse at Westmead. She came here today, I think, with some grandkids. She normally works on Sundays, so it was a sacrifice of her to come here, but then the kids had to go off to the playground. But anyway, they saw the granddad. Nursing ratios, big problem we have, so very concerned about that. I ran as council candidate, Ward 2 last year. We got the highest vote we've ever got in Blacktown. We got over 30%, and I'm convinced we're on the rise in Western Sydney. So we're gaining ground. I've been campaigning here for 15 years now, and I have this little joke that I can see our progress because I get sworn at much less often. But we're really getting positive comments now. Okay, so my number one policy issue, and again, is an anti-pokie action. And as I say, I've been campaigning for 15 years. One of my things is going out. I've already been last few weeks, shopping centres. I was at Blacktown Station handing out anti-pokie leaflets, so you might have seen me around. I'm the membership officer for our local group, so I also make a load of phone calls and stuff. I've just finished 125 members and supporters, and got a list from head office of 900 people to call before the next election, which should be interesting. So why am I running? I'm passionate about particularly social, environmental issues. You might have seen my grandkids. I want them to grow up in a good environment. So, number one issue, pokies. We need to take action. We are the only party to take any action on pokies. Greens have a really great 5-point policy plan. Number one at the top is the cashless gambling card, which everyone seems to be against, even though Perrottet has said he might do something about it after the election. We don't believe him. Our number one MP on the upper house, number one ticket, Kate Fairman, who's already been mentioned. She's actually, she wasn't here today, she's actually starting the major campaign launch for the Pokies policy. So 5 policies, action, positive action.
She was on the radio this morning. ABC Radio.
Wonderful woman. She's also very much, she was at the Westmead action where we were as well, for nursing ratios. Now, I have a number of other issues which I'm very concerned about, which some of the other speakers have already mentioned. So number 2 would be, we need firm protection for renters' rights. And Damien, I guess, has already spoken about that, possibly feels more strongly, very strongly as a renter. That's one of our major issues. The third issue, incinerators. Now, people even didn't seem to know in Blacktown there were 2 waste-to-energy incinerators planned for Blacktown. We took quite a bit of action. We were out at shopping centres trying to hand out leaflets, get people to know about it. At the moment, the state is that the 2 incinerators probably won't be built, or that's what we're being told, but we don't know for sure. We're worried about state significance, which might be a loophole. And unlike Labour, we don't want incinerators anywhere, not only in the Sydney Basin, we don't want them in New South Wales. Terrible policy. The proposal, they're going to run for 30 years, 24/7. My kids are going to suffer all kinds of lung disease, my grandkids and everyone else if it goes ahead. So, those are some of the major issues. As an ex-TAFE teacher, I'm concerned about the issue with TAFE, particularly Blacktown TAFE, where I used to work, possible selling off the land. We want highly subsidised, if not free, places. Labour also committed to that, but they were the first people that actually started this policy of privatisation. So we want to make sure that we're in there using our numbers and the upper house, etc., to put action against them. And then finally, of course, we've got this huge problem of overdevelopment that my esteemed colleague Rob has already talked about. It's unbelievable, the new estates going up in the Riverstone area, and it's so frustrating. They're destroying canopy cover, concreting green areas, and they can't even get something as simple as a ban on black roofs. Apparently the developers say that's what the customers like. So, we need to tackle all of these issues. The Greens have good policies. I've highlighted Pokies because that's my main concern, but renters' right, just starting that as well. So I'm asking people to vote Greens, make a difference. One of the things members of the public sometimes say is, oh, what's the point of voting Greens? You know, you can't do anything. Well, we can. At the federal level, we have 12 senators out of 76. At the state level, we're going for 3 this time instead of 1 we had at the moment, and then we already have existing. We have one senator, one MLA. 2. We have 2 MLAs. We're aiming for 5. Sorry, I should have known that. Anyway, so vote Green, make a difference. Thank you very much, and I'm about to hand you over to the final member of our, I can't say wonderful, can I, because that's praising myself. Our esteemed quartet, who's mantra.
Thanks, Len, and thanks, Len, for welcoming me to the Blacktown Greens. So, Len, Rob, and Damien are all familiar names in their electorates. But I'm a new boy in Mount Druitt. So, you might like to know a bit about me and how I came to be Greens candidate in the Mount Druitt electorate. Dear lovely people, my official name is Asam Mahabub Moshi. Goodness gracious. That is quite mouthful. So in Bangladesh, beside the official name, we also have something called Daknam or pet name. So my pet name in Australia is Michael or Mike. So one of my earliest childhood memories from Bangladesh is my parents building brick walls at the two entry points of our humble abode. It did not make much sense. Why are they making it so difficult for me to venture out? But the next morning, I was surprised to see knee-deep water just outside our doors. Instantly, our neighborhood turned into Venice. And our home became a luxurious waterfront bungalow. My cousins from Dhaka city came to stay with us as their home turned into a submarine. I'm still filled with amazement at my parents' prophetic actions, which blocked water from entering into the rooms. How did they foresee this? This childish happy memory is from 1988, when 60% of Bangladesh was underwater. This memory has now turned into a nightmare because adult politicians, not only in Australia but all over the world, are refusing to pursue policies that tackle the causes of natural disasters like bushfires and flooding. As Pink once said, we are billions of beautiful hearts, and capitalists sold us down the river too far. Getting my Australian passport in 2016 meant that I can no longer remain neutral. That is, as citizens, we are all required to vote in Australia. In 2017, I voted for the first time in the Parramatta City Council election for a Greens candidate. Luckily, Parramatta Council got its first Green Party councillor in that election. This is the Honourable Chris Brandon.
Hey, what up, Phil? We're following you.
I'm attracted to the Greens because it is the only party that does not take any corporate donations. So how do they run an election then? It is with the grassroots support of its members and volunteers only. But then what do you do when your area does not have any active members? That's exactly the situation the Liverpool Greens found itself in 2020. So very naively, I ran as a candidate for the Liverpool Council election after consulting with my dance supervisor. And slowly and gradually, my life began to unravel. Ultimately, I lost my job due to my progressive views. So despite my precarious situation, I'm still considering standing as a Greens candidate for the beautiful Mount Green. We can keep it beautiful by preventing overdevelopment. There are 16 suburbs in the Mount Green electorate, from Rooty Hill and Minchinbury in the south to Wilmot, Shelby, Bidwell and Hasselgrove in the north. Election after election, people of Mount Green has consistently preferred the Labour, Red Team, Liberals, Blue Team over the Greens for New South Wales state legislature. And those two major political parties have consistently disappointed and failed the residents. For instance, Bidwell, which has gone from a community where most residents were to one where more than 90% are living on Centrelink payments. In New South Wales, most disadvantaged or deprived locations are either in regional or remote communities of New South Wales, except for three. All those three underprivileged locations fall within my electorate boundary. So as you can see, historically, the blue and the red team has taken us for a ride, and regrettably we have been entrusting them with our jobs without asking them any tough questions or getting proper accountability. For instance, First Nations people are entitled to us. What about us? What about all the times you said you had the answers? What about all the promises that ended in disasters? What about treaty? What about our voices? What about us? I'm thrilled to have moved to a part of Sydney where there are so many Aboriginal people. I've taken my first step on my learning journey by attending the recent Night of celebration at Kimberwadi. Loved every minute of the dance performances. And want to listen to Aboriginal people to understand more about what they need from the state government. I'm extremely concerned that Aboriginal people of all ages are disproportionately represented in the criminal justice system. That includes kids under the age of 40.
Right.
I'm concerned about the disproportionate rate of child removals from First Nations families by child protection authorities. I'll vote for legal reforms whose intent is to support at-risk families to stay together safely instead of children being put out of home care. I support for the age of criminal responsibility being raised so that the kids aged 10 to 13 don't end up in juvenile detention facilities. While the blue and red teams look down on the children as problems, I'm saying they are children that need to be loved. Again, children have every right to ask the adult politician, what about us? What about parks? What about playgrounds? What about the shade and the birds and trees? What about water parks? What about love? What about trust? What about us? In Australia, every person who has to go to hospital should experience world-class care. I would like people to be able to get care for more conditions at Mount Druitt Hospital instead of having to go all the way to Blacktown, which is bursting at the seams already. I'm campaigning for a bigger and better Mount Druitt Hospital with world-class mental health facilities. We need well-paid nurses and hospital staff. We don't need Charlie Teo's blood money and medical tourism to hijack all the resources from the public sector. Again, Mount Druitt residents may well cry out from the roof to the rest of the Sydney. What about us? Why are our streets struggling? I strongly believe in equity in education, an Australia where our postcode does not determine our future prospects, the opportunities available to us, or our ability to contribute to society. My mission is to grow and motivate a community of leaders committed to fairness, equity, and justice for all children by ensuring equitable access to high-quality education, regardless of their background or race or their household weekly income. TAFE and public school students are crying. We were willing, we came when you called, but many fooled us. Enough is enough. It's the start of us waking up. We don't want control, we want freedom. So are you all ready? God willing, I shall be ready. Thank you so much. So I'd like to invite our convener, Helen, to proceed with the rest of the function. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for all our candidates for speaking to us this morning. We're very lucky to have the candidates who speak to the upper house candidates. You know, Lily Kerr and Jean Casey were both planning to come. Both are unable to be with us for medical reasons. So we wish them all the very best. And at least their beautiful faces have had a lot of exposure on social media. And we also have with us a statement from Kate Lennon, who's unfortunately able to be with us either because she's been launching protests and so I'll just read that out to you. I'm sorry I can't be with you all today on direct land to celebrate the launch of your campaigns for Mount Druitt, Winston Hills, Blacktown and Riverstone, but please know I am cheering you all on in spirit. I'd like to say thank you to Damien, Rob, Michael and Len for putting your hands up to represent our movement. I know it isn't always easy being viewed in Western Sydney, but the result of your hard work is paying off. It's an excellent result across Western Sydney from the federal election. Thanks to you and thousands of others across the state, you made history in May by electing our second Green Senator from New South Wales. We also saw an incredible Green slide with 3 seats in Brisbane going green. And just recently, we saw impressive swings in Victoria where they looked like coming close to doubling their party unit. Now it's our turn. I know Amanda, June and Jim all plan to be with you there today. As you know, we are running to elect at least 3 upper house MPs this election, who will join sitting upper house MPs Sue Higginson and Abigail Hall. That won't be possible without you. Every time you get out there and speak with people on the streets, on the phones and at their door, and every time you stand in the voting booth, you help to grow our movement. This election is so important. We need to kick the Liberals out and elect more Greens to push the next government further and faster, to end coal and gas, cut rents, act on housing affordability, and to end the special treatment given to developers, coal and gas companies, and the gambling industry. Thanks to you, change is within reach. Let's do this. I can't wait to hit the campaign trail with you all again soon. But here on the campaign trail with us this morning, Amanda Cohen, who's from all the way from Auburn, especially from
Thank you so much for having me. Unlike Rob and Len, I'm not a school teacher, so if you can't hear me at the back, please take a step forward. It's wonderful to be here with you all today, and of course I'll also acknowledge that we're on Darug land that was stolen and never ceded, and I pay my respects to elders past and present. I have a confession to make. I really love elections. I know they're a lot of work when you're involved. And it's not just because I think Anthony Green is a national treasure. And it's not just because I think my partner looks really good in a Greens t-shirt. I love elections because it's the time of year when we can come together like we have today to talk about the kind of future that we want for our communities. To talk about the really big issues that matter and to build a better future together. But trust in state politics is as low as it's ever been. There was a national survey conducted recently asking people about trust in various professions. Nurses, paramedics and doctors were the top three. Used car salespeople and real estate agents were somewhere in the middle, followed by local politicians, federal politicians and state politicians right at the very bottom. And I blame the last few decades of Liberal, National and Labor politicians for putting state politics in such a state. So I get asked quite frequently, why would I want to go from a GP, a doctor, one of the three most trusted professions in our communities, to a state parliamentarian, the absolute bottom of the barrel. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about my experiences as a frontline emergency services volunteer with the SES for the last 11 years, and as a GP working in the country on the border between New South Wales and Victoria. When I first joined the State Emergency Service 11 years ago, we spent a lot of time training and helping out our local communities. And once every year or two, there might be a major event where you go to volunteer interstate or another part of the state to support a local community. In the last 2 or 3 years, as you know if you've been watching the news, there's been a disaster continuously somewhere, always. And our emergency service volunteers have been asked to continually deploy somewhere in New South Wales or across Australia for the last 2 or 3 years. It is so obvious that the frequency and severity of our natural disasters are getting worse because of climate change. On New Year's Eve 2019, I was volunteering in the Lake George Fire Control Centre, which is in Queanbeyan. I was operating radios and communications equipment to support firefighters out in the field. You've probably seen on the news what those rooms look like, where you're all in rows looking up at the big maps on the screen. And overnight they had planes doing aerial reconnaissance, so the map would update every few minutes with where the fire line was up to on the map. And between the updates we would really hold our breath and wait to see what was happening and where it was up to. And sitting in that room with us, of course, were fire behaviour experts. People who've spent their whole careers mapping and predicting fire behaviour, who would then tell us what we needed to do. So I was in that room with these experts, and they told us to send out the text to evacuate Cobargo because the town was going to be hit by fire. So we sent the message through the RFS out. We said, you need to evacuate, please move east. And then we waited for the map to update, and our stomachs absolutely dropped because the fire moved across the entire screen. 1 second. And it was 11 minutes after the please evacuate text we were asked to send the message, it's too late to leave, please shelter in place. And we all know what happened in Cobargo on that evening. And that fire moved faster than any expert in that room has ever seen before or could ever have predicted. I'd worked with those people the whole summer, incredible experts, know more than anyone could possibly know about fire behaviour, and they could not have seen this coming. So I am terrified. I'm terrified by what I've seen with my own eyes with climate change. And I know that we need governments at every level and whole communities to take that action now. Now as a GP, I spent 12 years studying to learn how to help people with diabetes and heart failure, to support them to have a healthy pregnancy or to end a pregnancy, to support them with depression and post-traumatic stress. But because our health system is so broken, I'm not able to do the work that I trained to do, just like your hard-working nurses here at Blacktown and Mount Druitt hospitals. Our health system doesn't just need a band-aid, it needs significant reform. This goes beyond healthcare. In my day-to-day work as a GP, I wasn't able to help people when we've got an epidemic of insecure work and insecure housing, when we've got a plague of domestic violence and racism and discrimination. What we have in New South Wales is a terrible case of the Liberal National Coalition and their capitalist neoliberal agenda. What New South Wales needs is social justice. We need sustainability. We need peace and grassroots democracy. It needs an organised movement of people to drive the changes that we need within our own communities. It needs the Greens. I wanted to say thank you to the candidates that are here today, the 4 that we've spoken to and any others that are here, as well as your families. I know it's a huge commitment to make. And standing as a candidate where we're very unlikely to win a seat is an incredible act of love. It's an act of love for your local community and for our movement. So I wanted to say thank you for giving your communities here and voters a choice to use their votes to send a powerful message. You're giving people the option to say with their vote that they're sick of politics as usual, that they're sick of red team, blue team, that they want an opportunity for change. And together with local campaigns across the whole state, we can win 3 seats in the upper house. Linda June Coe, who some of you may have met, who's our 3rd candidate on the ticket. Unfortunately, she can't be here today. She is an incredible educator and academic. She's a PhD candidate studying Indigenous sovereignty movements. She's a Wiradjuri and Northern Island activist, originally from Cowra in regional New South Wales. If you have the opportunity to meet her and speak with her, you'll be immediately struck that this is a woman that needs to be given a microphone and a platform. She's someone that needs to have a seat in the New South Wales Parliament so that the whole of New South Wales can hear her calls for First Nations justice and climate justice. And it's going to take all of us to bring her with us to Macquarie Street. Now in March we have the opportunity for a change of government. It's really exciting. This is a change of government and election. We can kick the Liberal National Coalition out and get a minority government, now really optimistically with Greens balance of power, which is what we all want. But with a word of caution, I live in Albury-Wodonga, I live in rural New South Wales, where there's the same disillusionment with the major parties. That's happening everywhere. It's happened in Victoria. The vote for both major parties is at an all-time low. But it's not just going to come to us if we do nothing, because it may well go to the Christian Democrats, or the Shooters and Fishers, or One Nation. So if we do nothing, there's a real risk we'll have a new minority government with the Shooters and Fishers balance of power. So the conversations that we need to happen to change that don't actually happen at Macquarie Street, and they don't happen at the Greens head office in Camperdown either. They're happening in your community every day. They're happening in the tea room at work. They're happening on the sidelines or at the canteen at Saturday Sport. They're happening in parks and at picnics. And we need you to have those conversations to change hearts and minds. People don't change their vote because they see a really good ad on the telly or because they see a clever sign when they're driving past. They'll change their vote because they meet a volunteer from their own local community who's passionate about the issues that matter locally. And I'm so heartened to hear from the 4 candidates we have today and your passion for addressing the things that matter in your local community. So in finishing, I just wanted to draw your attention and speak to Neve and Hugh, who are Damien's beautiful children. Because I hope that in 15 or 20 years, when we're relaxing in our solar-powered, air-conditioned, affordable homes, enjoying our fairly earned leisure time in a beautiful public park, we can look them in the eye and say, we were there and we were part of that change. When the world was burning, when the state was being sold to private companies, we were there on the ground. We were at the polling booth. We were handing out the leaflets. We were having the conversation that mattered to give these guys a future. But thank you so much for being a part of it.
write their name before you leave. We will be campaigning through the summer as well as not just in the few weeks before the election. It is an ongoing campaign. Just before we take a group photograph and have lunch, I have a statement from Maureen, which I've been keeping till last because it's so very, very good. I can hear Maureen's lovely voice saying it, but unfortunately I can't imitate it. So you'll have to hear my voice instead. I'm really sorry not to be with you today for the launch of 4 incredibly important campaigns. I'm in Brisbane for the Greens National Conference, then flying to Papua New Guinea as part of a parliamentary delegation. I've always relished elections. It's such exciting times because they are such a good opportunity to engage with people, grow the support for our movement and our vote, grow our representation, and ultimately change the world for the better. I feel so proud and privileged to be your representative and fight the good fight in Canberra. This year, we have seen a green slide in the federal election, with 2 Green senators from New South Wales now in Parliament. We got our highest ever vote in Victorian state election. There is change in the air. More people than ever have voted Green because they want action on the issues they care about, like no new coal and gas, tackling the housing and cost of living crisis, protecting our precious places, and saving our koalas by ending native forest logging, and cleaning up politics and getting rid of the corrupting influence of powerful vested interests. People want action, and they trust us to take it. Just this week in the federal parliament, we saw the passage of a National Anti-Corruption Commission, which the Greens have been campaigning on for years. With the crucial support of the Greens, the government is able to get this done. Regardless of what happens in Parliament, I've always been of the view that power ultimately lies with the people, and that change begins and ends in the community. We've seen that with the campaign for marriage equality, in the fight against coal seam gas, and so much more. The Greens are activists and campaigners, and none of these campaigns would have succeeded without grassroots engagement. Western Sydney is frequently talked about as a battleground for votes, but I see it as a place where our 4 candidates make huge contributions in leadership and connection within their communities. It's a place where diverse communities are forging a new vision of Australia as a truly diverse and anti-racist nation. And it's a place where the campaigns that we Greens champion are urgent. Whether it's the need for affordable housing, resources to public schools, or the need to take strong action on climate. I can't wait to see where this election campaign will take us. I can't wait to see our 4 incredible candidates out in community talking with residents. Really good price for them, they really are. And I can't wait to campaign alongside them. I am so proud of Jamie, Michael, Rob and Len from the Blacktown Greens. Thinking of you all, and sending my congratulations and very best wishes for an exciting campaign.